Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is getting high. Maybe they're at a party. Maybe they're sitting on a couch, eating snacks they weren't planning to eat. Maybe they're staring at the ceiling, wondering if they've just unlocked the secrets of the universe. To most people, weed feels like a modern thing, something connected to celebrities, dispensaries, music festivals, and internet debates. But here's the strange part. Humans may have been getting high for thousands of years, long before modern governments, long before the first skyscraper, long before electricity, and possibly long before most of recorded history. The question is, did ancient humans actually smoke weed, or is that just something modern people like to imagine? The answer begins high in the mountains of Asia. In 2019, archaeologists made a remarkable discovery in western China. They were excavating ancient graves located more than 3,000 meters above sea level. Inside those graves, they found wooden braziers containing burned stones. At first, it didn't seem particularly important. Ancient people burned things all the time. But when researchers analyzed the residue left behind, they found chemical traces of cannabis. Not just cannabis that had been deliberately burned. In other words, somebody wasn't simply carrying the plant, they were inhaling the smoke. And suddenly, a fascinating possibility emerged. People may have been smoking weed 2,500 years ago, but that only creates another mystery. How did they discover it in the first place? Unlike alcohol, cannabis doesn't accidentally appear in fruit. Somebody had to experiment. Imagine you're living thousands of years ago. No science, no chemistry, no internet. You see a strange plant growing in the wild. Most people walk past it, but eventually, somebody gets curious. Maybe they throw it into a fire. Maybe they notice the smoke feels different. Maybe they start feeling relaxed. Maybe they start laughing. Whatever happened, it was important enough that the knowledge survived. And once humans discover something interesting, they rarely forget it. Ancient texts suggest cannabis spread across Asia through trade routes. Merchants carried seeds. Travelers carried stories. The plant slowly moved from one culture to another, and wherever it went, people found new uses for it. Some used it for rope, some used it for clothing, some used it as medicine, and some may have used it to alter consciousness. One of the most famous descriptions comes from a Greek historian named Herodotus. Around 440 BC, he wrote about a group called the Scythians. These were fierce nomadic warriors who lived across the Eurasian steppes. According to Herodotus, after funerals, the Scythians would enter enclosed tents. Inside, they placed hot stones on the ground. Then they threw cannabis onto those stones. As thick clouds of smoke filled the tent, the people inside shouted with joy. For centuries, many historians weren't sure whether to believe him. Ancient writers exaggerated all the time. Maybe he misunderstood what he saw. Maybe it was a myth. Then archaeology stepped in. Researchers discovered Scythian burial sites containing cannabis seeds and smoking equipment. Suddenly, Herodotus didn't seem so unreliable. The evidence matched his story surprisingly well. And that tells us something important. Ancient humans probably weren't smoking weed just for fun. For many cultures, altered states of consciousness were connected to religion and spirituality. If a plant changed the way reality felt, people often believed it had supernatural power. A strange vision wasn't simply imagination. It might be a message from the gods. A powerful dream wasn't just a dream. It might be something sacred. To modern people, that sounds unusual. But imagine living thousands of years ago. No understanding of the brain. No neuroscience. No psychology. If a plant suddenly changed your thoughts, it would feel magical. And that's exactly how many ancient cultures viewed it. What's really fascinating is that cannabis wasn't valuable only because of its psychoactive effects. It was useful in many different ways. Its fibers could be turned into rope. Its seeds could be eaten. Its oils could be used. Very few plants offered so many benefits at once. That may be one reason it spread so successfully across the ancient world. But here's the biggest question of all. Why are humans so attracted to experiences that alter the mind? Because cannabis isn't the only example. Throughout history, humans have searched for ways to change consciousness. Through meditation, through music, through fasting, through alcohol, through rituals, and sometimes through plants. It's almost as if humans have always been curious about what lies beyond ordinary experience. Maybe that's why cannabis survived for thousands of years. Not because people fully understood it, but because they were curious enough to keep exploring it. So, did ancient humans smoke weed? The evidence suggests that some of them probably did, not in the same way people do today, not for the same reasons. But long before modern debates about cannabis existed, ancient humans were already experimenting with the plant. And perhaps that's the most interesting part of this story. The real story isn't about weed. It's about curiosity. Ancient humans looked at the world and wondered what was possible. Thousands of years later, we're still doing exactly the same thing. In fact, some researchers believe the cannabis used by ancient people may not have been exactly the same as the cannabis growing nearby. And that's because of where many of these discoveries were made. High-altitude environments can be harsh. Strong sunlight, thin air, extreme weather. Under those conditions, cannabis plants often produce higher levels of certain chemical compounds, including the compounds responsible for psychoactive effects. In other words, ancient people may have deliberately sought out stronger plants, not because they understood THC. They had no idea what THC was, but they understood results. If one plant produced a more powerful experience than another, people would notice. And once they noticed, they would remember. Generation after generation, that knowledge could spread, not through books, not through science, but through stories. One person shows another. A traveler shares a secret. A ritual gets repeated. And over centuries, a simple wild plant becomes part of an entire culture. That's what makes this story so fascinating. We're not just talking about cannabis. We're watching human curiosity in action. The same curiosity that pushed humans across continents. The same curiosity that led to inventions, discoveries, and civilizations. Ancient humans didn't know where cannabis came from. They didn't know how it worked, but they wanted to understand what happened when they used it. And that desire to explore the unknown may be one of the oldest human behaviors of all.